One of the most common questions I get from people that do not keep reptiles that I interact with is that, like, aren't you afraid that the animal will get out and, like, crawl on you when you're sleeping? And I don't know why, but I've gotten this exact question, like, a lot. And I feel like that's kind of weird. I don't know why that's what people think of immediately, but it's because I have a lot of reptiles in my room, and I guess that's immediately what comes to their mind. So generally, my uh, very arrogant self is like, well, I built the enclosures, so they won't get out. But that doesn't even scare me. It doesn't even faze me. I wouldn't care. Actually, I've had a lot of interactions with my animals where I'm like, oh, you're there. I didn't expect you to be there. So like sometimes I'll forget to lock my iguana's cage, come in my room, the iguana's on the floor. I'm like, oh, look at that. Or like a turtle gets out and it's just like on the floor, and like sometimes it kind of like just the fact that I didn't expect it to be there kind of like shocks me a little bit. And I'm like, you're there, but it doesn't bother me because I know none of them could actually do any damage to me, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, where this video is going is that one of them got out, and I want to talk about that. So as I said, Charlie has gotten out before. This is Charlie, the female green iguana, and she's pretty big. She's gotten out into the house before as well because I didn't always keep my door closed, so she would just, like, she was there. I had to catch her when she was in the dining room once, and the main concern was that she gets into everything. She got out once and ate clay, which was interesting because I filmed the fact that I like took apart her feces at the time to like find the clay, and I did find it, so she passed it and everything, and she was fine, no issues there. So that video's probably never happened before ever. I think I was the first one to make a video about an iguana eating clay, but anyway, it was on accident, obviously, and she ate it because it was green, and she's kind of a doofus. So she gets into stuff, and she kind of wreaks havoc if she can go around the house. So that's unideal for her mainly, and also for me because it's stressful, because I don't want her to hurt herself. But anyway, she's gotten out before. That's fine. Doesn't really bother me. She can go around my room. Sometimes she'll break something, like I said, but generally I'll find her and then I have to get her back, and no big deal. Richard is allowed to come out whenever he wants. Actually, that's not true, but I do always have his enclosure open because he doesn't seem to get out, and it's easier to access his cage, and he's never gotten out, so I always have it like this. But a lot of the time we'll just let him run around the living room or whatever. He can't climb steps, so he just stays down here on this level. Can't really get into anything. He kind of just sleeps in a corner generally, and he's fine to get out. Phoebe's almost always out. Whenever she's trying to lay eggs, she'll jump out of her tank, which is just over here, and she's out. And then Susan's gotten out before. I found the little turtle out the other day because it just jumped out, because they can kind of, if they get really sporadic, then they can climb this way and then come down. Luckily this is it's not the worst thing for them to fall on, and generally they don't get hurt too much. Susan kind of hurts herself sometimes if she goes sporadic and jumps off. That will generally not go too well for her, but she's healed up just fine. She like nicked her head, but she's fine. So everybody's pretty much fine. Generally, animals don't get out. As you can see, the leopard gecko's cage is open. She'll never get out. I'm positive of that. But Norman can even jump off if he really wants to. But generally, he'll sit on the edge, and then he'll just go back into his tank. But real quick, he has some stuff on him. Give me a second. Just gonna take off these. Okay. Just let him sit there. Anyway, he'll be smart about it, and he'll go into the tank, as he always does. And he'll get up on these bits, and he'll literally be hanging off the tank, and he just goes back. But this morning, my alarm went off, and it was really dark, and I set my phone right here, generally, and then I went to turn it off, and I heard something running. So there was definitely something. It sounded like a crested gecko, because I know what it sounds like when a crested gecko goes sporadic and it runs all over. So I
immediately turn on my light, and then I turn it off, and I assume it's these guys right here because there's 2 geckos in here, and I was like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that my alarm would like freak them out because I just hadn't thought that far ahead. So I assumed it was that, and then I went back to sleep because I wasn't going to something, so I went back to sleep, reset my alarm, and then I woke up at like 9, and I went to feed the animals. Like, I didn't think anything of it. I did set my phone like down here. I think I'll just leave it there. It doesn't seem to bother them too much, because what I later learned was that Darwin had gotten out. Here's Darwin right there. Because I saw her, I was feeding the animals, and I just look, and she's just hanging out on my book bag. And she's there, and I thought that was like nuts. Well, not really. I was just like, oh, because that's generally my reaction when an animal gets out. Like, that's interesting. So I took a picture of it, and then I just got her. I kind of figured she'd be a little bit flighty because I assumed whatever happened was kind of traumatic for her. So I put her just back into her cage, and what I realized was that this had gone like open like this. So it was closed on the bottom, but it was open on the top, and the tape hasn't really held it because this tape's like a couple weeks old now, and it's just not gonna hold it. So I need to get these doors done. But here, let me get out, and I want to talk about something and discuss this. So let me get her out.
So first of all, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, she got out, and that's fine. I put her back, and I probably wouldn't have realized that she was out unless I saw her. So thank the Lord that I saw her, and luckily my door was closed, so she would have been in the room. But then I got to considering all the different things that had to have happened last night. So first of all, she was somewhere when I woke up. I don't know where, but she was somewhere that I freaked her out when I woke up. So the question is, was she on my desk? I assume so, because that's what I heard, right? But then I was thinking, I was like, what if she was on the floor? Maybe she was on my bed even, because somehow she ended up on my book bag, and I don't know how. So something from my alarm or me getting up freaked her out to make her run somewhere, and I have no idea what happened there. So just considering the possibilities there. And then you get to thinking, at some point last night, she got from her enclosure, okay, to the ground to here. But then what if she went into the fish tanks? Like, there's so many different possibilities here. She could have gotten onto heat lights. She could have went into the fish tanks. The turtles could have eaten her. Like, there's so many things that could have happened. She could have gotten up into the iguana's cage. She could have gotten up, like, behind the iguana's cage. She could have gotten behind her enclosure. She literally could have gotten anywhere. Like, it's insane where she actually went, but also the possibilities. So here, I want to show you this, because I have one more clue of what happened last night. And other than that, I have no idea. So I'll walk you through it a little bit. Okay, so we know that she got off there, right? So she got from there, she crawled around, and then went onto the front of these enclosures. So if she goes down, she's either going to go to the trash can, the floor, or the fish tank, right? And then if she goes upwards, then she's going to end up by that light, or back behind the iguana's cage, in between her cage and the iguana cage, or up where the roaches are, like all over here, which is all horrible, that I'd just like never find her. And then we have those possibilities, but what I'm thinking is she actually went right here, because there is some urates right there. So she was on top of this, and she pooped, because you can tell there's stuff there, stuff there, stuff there, right? So then I got to thinking, I was like, she could have climbed up, because they like to go upwards. She probably could have climbed up onto the heat light and burned herself. And then she went from there to somehow being on my desk /floor/bed. So she went from there to somehow getting to the floor. And again, they can't swim. Like, I think they might float, because I've possibly maybe dropped, or I've had them in a place where they jumped into a fish tank before, and luckily I think that was before I had turtles, so there was no issues there, but turtles are pretty slow anyway, and I always realized right away, and I got them right out of the water. But they're not exactly swimmers,
So that could have been real bad. And I'm just thinking, like, how did she get from there to probably over here somewhere, and then she got into my book bag. So I don't know where she was, but there's just a lot to think about there. And I've never had a crested gecko escape. I've even had her closure open like all day before during the day. And I realized when I got home, I was like, oh shoot, it's open, but she was still inside, so no biggie there. And other than that, from what I know, I don't think I've ever had a crested gecko escape. And I have quite a few crested geckos now, but it was just interesting to think about all that she must have like went through last night. So what this means to me is that I need to finish my doors and get them properly set up, because obviously I was being kind of dumb with things, or so it's just kind of interesting, I guess, to think about. But I wanted to share it with you guys because I just originally I was like, oh, like whatever, and I wish I would have filmed it then, but I didn't even cross my mind. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, okay, she got out, I'll put her back, and then I noticed the urates, and then I started thinking, and I just thought like all the different things. So hopefully this never happens again, because generally I wasn't worried about it, but then I thought about the fish tanks, and I thought about the heat bulbs and stuff like that, and it could be real bad. Plus, behind the iguana's cage, I could never get a crested gecko out from back there. And they've almost gone back there before, which is real stressful. So I don't want that to happen. And luckily things, if they do get out, they generally don't go back there, or they can't. So it's not pushed up like completely against the wall. It's kind of out a little bit for a plug, but overall that would just not be good. So I hope you enjoyed this weird video, and if you happen to, like it down below. If you have any comments or concerns, put in the comments below. And if you want more content, then subscribe. There's a gecko up there. Other than that, have a fantastic day.